Welcome back to my channel and thank you for tuning in today. Today's topic is going to be about how to raise emotionally secure children. As parents, we oftentimes read a lot of things about how to become parents, how to effectively parent our children, and in today's society it's really confusing of the right things that we can do for our children to produce good, healthy adults. If this is a topic that interests you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment so that you can keep on top of when I produce more videos like this. In this video, I will give you 5 tips to identify ways to parent effectively for children that as they grow from children to adolescence into early adulthood, that they are emotionally secure and can move into adulthood without a lot of difficulties. Through this video, I want you to think about parenting as sort of like OJT, on the job training. Think about when you had got your first job and how a supervisor may have modeled or taught you the tricks of the trade of that job. Parenting is very similar to this type of OJT, where as parents we model and demonstrate things for our children in order for them to become secure adults to do that for themselves. Oftentimes parents get that confused and we think of parenting as a way to protect our children, to keep our children away from harm and away from danger. And of course that is something that as a good parent we always try to do. However, sometimes in today's society we get a little carried away where often we will overly protect our children or keep them away from activities that may be something to help them feel good about themselves, emotionally secure, and that can help them through their childhood years. So think of your child as your employee, and this is on the job training. How would you want to train that employee to be secure and able to independently live adulthood? These type of things are something that parents, as a way of changing how we think about parenting, can really help our children be those secure adults that we would like for them to be, rather than insecure, looking for validation because they aren't getting validation, or being just too afraid to approach the world because they've been overly protected. So the first tip is all about communication. Learn to actively listen to your child. At times, this is allowing them to have their own voice and showing them that they are important people in this society. Oftentimes as parents, we have this mentality that we're the parent, you're the child, you should listen, and that their perspective doesn't matter. However, in the world as they are adults, their perspective does matter, and their perspective is expected to be inputted in their jobs and their personal lives. So teaching them as young children that their perspective matters will then allow them to effectively communicate that to their future bosses, their future spouses, their future co-workers. By actively listening, and what actively listening means is just sitting and hearing what your child has to say without responding with your own emotions, hearing their side of the story without any sort of reaction. Tip number 2 kind of piggybacks on tip number 1, and that's responding without judgment. So again, communicating with your child, responding in a manner that is neutral. It does not have your own emotions attached to it. For instance, if you're asking your child's perspective of things, and this may be something that the child responds that might hurt your feelings as a parent because they are saying something like as if you hurt their feelings or did something that they didn't like, responding without judging them will then allow them to speak their opinion in future cases. Again, this is helpful with employment, with dating their spouses, in life in general. So allowing them to respond to you in a way where you aren't judging them, and again, you're hearing their perspective. The answer again when communicating with them, they may still get a no for an answer, but that they feel like they've at least been heard and there was some sort of negotiation made. Tip number 3, in my opinion, is very, very important and may actually be number 1 on the list, is allow your kids to explore. By allowing them to explore, they will be able to see the things that they like and they dislike, which may be very different from the things that you like or dislike. And again, think in the big picture, we are trying to produce healthy individuals, and them being individuals is going to be very separate from their parents. So allowing them to see different sports or activities, clothing styles, hairstyles, different things like that they actually enjoy may again be very different from what you like and what you know yourself. However, this allows them to find their place in life and not to feel like they are only going to school or playing the sport to appease their parent. Again, that does not provide a child support. It does not allow them to grow emotionally. It just makes them feel guilty because they are playing a sport or in theater or drama or something like that, singing, dancing, to appease their parents, but they don't really like that activity. So allowing them to go out and practice things, particularly in teenage years, not having tracking devices on them. I know that's not what the media portrays, is that you should know everything that your child is doing and everywhere that they are going. However, if they aren't allowed to go out and do things, they aren't allowed to then make mistakes under your supervision for you to help them have a corrective experience. So allowing them to have these mistakes, and again, knowing that you've instilled right from wrong in them, that they are going to go out and be good human beings, but they will make mistakes. So allowing that to take place is very important. Tip number 4 kind of piggybacks on tip number 3, and that is setting boundaries. Even though you're letting your kids go out and explore and do things, they should be age appropriate and they should have some limits on them. So you're not going to allow a young child to go hang out at the mall without supervision. So things that are age appropriate, and again, is not going to necessarily encourage the child to get into trouble or have reduced supervision where the likelihood of them getting into trouble increases. So these boundaries can be set at home, set at school, and set when they're out with their friends. So if you enforce these boundaries at home, teaching right from wrong, and that there are repercussions when they overstep the boundaries, then when they go out with their friends as they start growing into their teenage years, then they understand what boundaries are and that there are limits, and they are less likely than to cross them. Of course, yes, they are going to experiment and things like that, but you want to make sure that the children aren't in any sort of danger as they are on this sort of OJT. The 5th and final tip is to teach. Teach your children from infants all the way through adulthood. And again, age appropriate. So teaching children, talking to them as they're babies so that they learn language, modeling good behavior, being able to show that, yeah, you can get angry, but these are the appropriate ways to express anger. This is how you apologize to a person when you are being human and you make a mistake. So teaching them throughout their lives of how to be a honest, good human being that has boundaries, has structures, abides by the law. Just remember that children are watching us all the time as parents. And so if we say, oh, well, I can speed this one time, there aren't any police around, or I can take a drink of beer and drive, they are ingesting this stuff as we are doing these things. And so when they go out to experiment and to do things on their own, they're thinking, well, my parents do this, so it must not be bad. So remember, as parents, when we are being honest, good law-abiding citizens, that is what we are teaching our children without even speaking to them. So being mindful of your behavior and what you're demonstrating to your children as a way to instill good behaviors in them. So moving forward, I want you to think of parenting as OJT. I've talked about that throughout the video. Remind yourself of what it's like to be a good manager. If you have not been a manager yourself, think of a good manager that you've had and reflect on what that manager taught you and why you felt they were a good manager. Instill those things in yourself and how that will help you then become that parent that allows this OJT for these children. What I'm finding in my practice a great deal are young adults that aren't safely and securely able to approach the world. So we're finding that young people are less likely to get their driver's license. They're less likely to move out after the age of 18. They're usually staying home until mid-20s. They're afraid to enroll in college. They may be very anxious to get a first job. These kind of things are increasing in this world as parents are kind of hovering over our children, trying to keep them safe in this world. But we have to allow them to get out and experiment and experience life, because without that, then we have adults that aren't prepared for the world as we were as parents. So when we were approaching adulthood, it was pretty simple at 18 to get out and get a job or get out and enroll in college. It's becoming increasingly difficult for our young people to do this because of parents overstepping their boundaries and trying to overprotect and overobserve their children. So if this is something that you enjoy, please like and subscribe. I encourage comments, and I will see you all next time.